In this episode, James talks about the SpellCheck feature of browsers and how it relates to sensitive data. Tackling the challenge to integrate security into the development process? Looking for insights, answers, and practical solutions to avoid getting overwhelmed? Welcome to the DevelopSec podcast, where our focus is your success in securing and improving development processes. And here's your host, James Jardine. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the new year. It's been a little while since I've done some recording on the podcast, but now that we're fresh into 2023, looking to take an opportunity to bring some more topics back, start getting back into this a little bit. So I hope you are looking forward to joining me on the journey of identifying some more application security, product security, secure development topics to help you kind of build your programs and hopefully in the end really just start building more secure applications from the start. So that's where a lot of our focus is going to be on, as it always has. I think we're going to also dive a little bit into the leadership side of things as well. I think it's important for us to understand how development plays a role in building secure applications. And when I say development, that obviously doesn't mean just developers. That means QA, that means business analysts, project managers. So we're going to have a lot of content coming out, so keep your eye on that stuff. Today I wanted to take a look at something. I actually saw this a couple months ago. I was going through my draft blog posts, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, I never really posted this. So I want to go back and take a look at it. So back, I guess, around September of last year, some researchers had come out with some information about the SpellCheck feature within the browsers and the ability for that to actually leak some sensitive info depending on the configuration you might have within your browser. So for example, if in Chrome you had enhanced spell checking capabilities turned on, which are not turned on by default, I'm pretty sure, it was possible that some sensitive information might be being sent to the Google servers to be able to perform the spell checking. So this is kind of an interesting scenario. I mean, at first you might think, well, it's Google servers, they're just using it for the spell check feature. Maybe it's not that big of a risk, but anytime we're taking information from our application and sending it to another application we don't control or another service, obviously that creates some level of risk for us, and we want to make sure we're protecting against that. Now, this to me is kind of similar to the idea of caching, right? And for a long time, we talked about, we have to turn caching off for sensitive fields when we send stuff back down to the browser. So if I've got social security numbers or credit card numbers, things like that, we always say turn off the caching so that way it doesn't get cached in the local browser and somebody else couldn't come along later on and then try to view that data. Oftentimes, though, we'll just turn it off for the entire page. How many times have you had a pen test done or you've had some scanning done and it comes back and tells you, you have to disable caching, put this header in here, put this metadata in here, we'll turn caching off. So similar to that, right, we're looking for sensitive fields to make sure that we're not taking, maybe usernames considered sensitive field, password obviously would be considered a sensitive field, social security numbers, private information. We want to make sure that we're not sending that back out to other servers that we don't control. And in this case, we're talking about the spell check area to be able to make sure that we're not sending information out to spell checking services. And this is interesting because I didn't realize this either until this article came out. And I'll put a link to the article in the show notes. Until that came out, I never even really gave any thought to the spell check feature or the browser or even how anything really happens around those input fields when they're sitting in the browser. So we want to make sure that we understand this stuff so we can set the appropriate things. It's kind of like the autocomplete. When we went back and we always said, hey, on the password field, make sure you're turning autocomplete off so that way the browser's not storing this information. This is another one of those layers where we're saying, hey, let's make sure that the browser's not doing something with that data that we don't understand. So it's less about what it's doing with it and really more about us as developers, as testers, understanding what the browser's doing so we can make sure that we take control over the aspects that we have control of. There are lots of things we can't control. This is one of those things. Now, unlike caching, where maybe we turned off at the whole page, typically we're not doing that. SpellCheck actually is a pretty useful feature, so we don't want to just turn it off for everything. Maybe we want notes fields or other things like that where we want spell checking capabilities to be there. So because of that, we don't want to just turn it off everywhere. Really, we want to kind of be like a sniper in this aspect of, okay, what fields do we want to turn it off for? So, of course, that starts with identifying what are your sensitive fields, right? That could be your social security numbers. It could be credit card numbers. It could be something HIPAA related, PCI related. You pick it. Whatever's sensitive to you, maybe your username. Some places usernames are considered sensitive fields. Some places they're not. A random username with nothing else around it, no other context, is just a string of data. Doesn't really have anything to do with anything. So that may or may not be considered sensitive data. One interesting caveat to this is that the password field, from a spell check perspective, the password field isn't really kind of vulnerable to this issue unless you actually have a show password feature, right, where it unmasks it and shows you what that password is. At that point, if somebody unmasks the data, then it will run it through the spell checker in certain circumstances, not always. But if you have like the enhanced spell checking experience turned on, it'll run it through the spell checker. And then now all of a sudden the password has been sent across. Now, again, I haven't looked super in depth on how the browser sends these over, if it's per field, if it's per form. If it's per field, then a password going across for spell checking without any other context. Now, of course, they have context because every request has IP address and some of these other details. Who knows what else they're grabbing from your browser. But theoretically, out of context, it's just a string of characters. It doesn't mean anything. But in that case, if you're doing something with a show password, we might want to turn spell check off for those specific fields to make sure that that data is not being sent out when we don't need it. And to be honest, a lot of these fields where we would turn spell check off probably don't really benefit from spell check. I mean, a username field, probably not that much. I'm not going to benefit that much from a spell check. Password field, well, if you're creating passwords that are random and all this different stuff, spell check shouldn't work on them anyway. So no benefit there. Social security numbers, well, there's really nothing to spell check there because that's a pre-formatted string. If there's stuff like that, really there's no benefit for the spell check on those fields. So it's okay to turn that off, right? Versus if I have a field where I want spell checking to happen, maybe it's name fields, addresses, that type of stuff, notes fields. Well, then obviously I want to keep spell check on, but we're not too concerned about the sensitivity of that data to the same regards that we are about more highly sensitive data that might be out there. So we have the option to be able to turn this off, and we can do it at 3 different levels. We can do it at the input box level, we can do it at the text area level, and we can also do it at the form level if you want it turned off for the entire form. And the way we do it on all 3 cases is each of those HTML elements, we're just going to add in a spell check equals false attribute, and that'll turn it off for that field. So pretty simple stuff to be able to add this in and make sure that we're not doing spell checking in those scenarios. So now that we know that this is a potential issue and we know how we can go through and fix it, the other last question really that we have is, how do we verify that we're doing it? And the first step to verifying that we're going to fix this, or that we have fixed this, is knowing which of those fields we need to do. So maybe this drops back into data classification and understanding that if we have certain fields listed under certain classification types, maybe something's confidential, maybe it's top secret, however you do your confidentiality types or classification types, being able to specify on there and say, okay, this field spell check has to be off. Same thing with password field, autocorrect has to be, autocomplete has to be off for that. And this always goes back to defining good requirements and good design to upfront be able to specify, here's the types of data that we're going to use. Here's the risks around those different types of data. Here's the protections that we're going to put around that data. And then once we have all that defined, then when we go to develop it, we know we need to make sure that we add this piece in there. When we go to test it, we know we want to validate that, yes, SpellCheck is turned off on these certain fields. That type of stuff is easy to validate once we actually define it, but so often we don't define it. And in my mind, the first step in all of this is this step right here, which is actually just realizing that it exists. I had no idea about the ability to turn SpellCheck on or off within the browser. Now, it's been a while since I've done development, so I don't know every attribute that's available in all the different elements, but just raising the awareness of the fact that that attribute's there and that we can control this is going to be very helpful in thinking about that as we go through it. And as you're building up your next form, thinking about, oh, this is a social security number. Should I turn this value off? What do I need to do to make sure that we're protecting this as we should be protecting it? So that's pretty much it. Pretty simple concept, just something I hadn't seen before, so I thought it'd be really fun to kind of share out with everybody. I'm not sure how many others have not seen this before, so if this is new to you, hopefully you find it kind of interesting. I thought it was pretty neat when I saw it. So like I said, I'll link to the article. It's a good way to kind of kick the year off, something short, simple, start talking about security from a different aspect. Like I said, we'll have a bunch more coming out this year, really getting back into trying to get some more episodes out here. If there's stuff that you're interested in, please feel free to send me a line. You can reach me at james@developsec.com, and always happy to see your feedback. If you've got certain topics, anything like that, send them my way. Otherwise, I'll be sending some more information your way. Again, I'd like to thank you for listening to the show. Hope you had a good 2022, and I'm looking forward to spending 2023 sharing some more content with everybody. So thanks for listening, and have a great day. You have been listening to the DevelopSec podcast with James Jardine. To find out more about how we can help you with application security, follow us on Twitter @DevelopSec, or check out our website at www.developsec.com.